Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline. Welcome to Time Out with Tinseltown Mom. I'm here today with family tech expert Sarah Kimmel. Sarah is a mom of two teens and has over 20 years of experience as an IT manager. She currently helps families understand and manage the technology in their homes. Today, we're going to talk about online platforms that your kids should avoid and why. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on. I feel like we probably need a 2-hour conversation though.
Yeah. Conversations with me tend to go a little over, so beware.
Okay. So before we get into the topic at hand, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, I've been in IT for over 20 years. And in the process of that, my friends would keep asking me questions, hey, I did this or, what, for my kids. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going, I started out with a blog, I'm like, I'll just put it there. And, it's over time, it's kind of graduated to now I mostly do it on YouTube and Instagram and podcasts. So,
Yeah, you have a lot of great, valuable content. So you're
oh,
helping
thank
a
you.
lot of parents out there for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you. I hope so.
Yes. So I know, we're talking about platforms that kids should avoid, and I'm sure there's probably hundreds of platforms out there we just don't know about.
New ones pop up every day.
I mean, yeah, and there's probably some parents have never heard of that their kids might be on or downloading, etc. But I guess we'll focus on some of the top ones, and then maybe you'll talk about some that parents should know about that they don't know about that they should be aware of.
Yeah, so I'm going to say my number one that like a lot of parents don't know about that they definitely should be aware about is Omegle. When Omegle started, it was originally called Chat Roulette, and this was several years ago. And when I first tried it out, because every time something launches, I try the thing out and see what it does. And literally, the very first second of me being on that website, was it connects you, it's Chat Roulette. So it connects you to a random stranger via video on the internet. And it was just a men's genitalia. Like,
What?
and I like shut the laptop. I was like, well, never going back to that site again. But unfortunately, it is still gaining a lot of popularity. A lot of kids, when they're like at the house, like with their friends, they think it's funny to like get on this site and like see what predators are out there like doing, but it's not funny and it's kind of damaging. So a lot of parents aren't aware that their kids are spending time on this website, and it is a very dangerous website.
Wow. Now, what is the purpose, just to get into the mind of a teen, aside from the perversion part of it? What is the purpose of that website? Is it to entertain, just so parents are kind of aware also?
Yeah, I mean, the purpose is like literally just to meet strangers on the internet. Like that is the entire purpose of the website. So it's not a place that any teenagers should be going, and you know, it's terrible.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. And what do you know what the age range is for downloading it?
I mean, everybody, like anybody that's got, I've heard of, kids, 10, 12, 13, and it's not necessarily a download. Like you can download it, but it's mainly a website. Like people just go to the website. And so the kids are just, messing around when they're at the house and like just, oh, hey, like check out this hilarious site, and they get on there and it's just not good. Not good.
Interesting. Okay. And we're going to have a list of these in the show notes just for parents too, if they want to check it out for themselves too.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
what next would you say?
So the next one that parents are aware of, that would be Snapchat is like the top of my list for probably not until like 16 or 17 is my kind of general age for Snapchat. The main reason is just the Discover feed is there's a lot of inappropriate content on there. And then just the addictive qualities of Snapchat. There's something called Snapchat streaks that kids will use to basically measure their relationships by. So the longer I have a streak with you, the better friends that we are. And so What's dangerous about this is they're so obsessed with keeping these streaks alive that say they lose access to their phone or access to Snapchat because they're grounded or something like that. They will give their login information to a friend to keep their streaks alive. And that just sets a really bad precedent too. Like never give your password to somebody else and things like that. So it's really that addictive quality where I have to make sure that I'm keeping this streak alive with my friend every day, or else like we're not as good of friends as I say we are. And so that's one thing I don't like about it. And then the lack of monitoring ability for Snapchat. So like with Instagram, although it has some of the same features as Snapchat, I can log into my child's account from my own phone and they can still be logged into it. But with Snapchat, if I log into their account, they get logged out of their account. So there's no real oversight there. And there's nothing that can really monitor any of those messages or snaps. Nothing can really monitor the snaps, but like you can monitor direct messages inside Snapchat if your child has an Android device. If they have an iPhone, you can't do it at all.
Wow, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Now, what about the parents whose kids are already on Snapchat? What can they do to make it, aside from just taking it away from them? Is there anything that they can do to make it safer, or is there just no way to make it safe?
Yeah, there's really no real way to make it safe. The best thing you can do is probably get your kid an Android device so that you can monitor those direct messages. But other than that, the snaps will disappear. So you're not going to have any oversight over that, even if you take your kid's phone and monitor it that way just by scrolling through what they've got going on. And especially if they have an iPhone, you won't even have the insight into the direct messages. So that's
Wow. So are there any web filtering devices like I mean, I know you talk about Bark a lot, and there's other ones like Custodio, et cetera, that can monitor Snapchat, or is that just not something?
Well, yeah, like I said, not on an iPhone. If the child has an iPhone, those tools cannot monitor Snapchat. If your child has an Android device, yes, it can monitor direct messages. So Bark can monitor direct messages from Snapchat on a child's Android device. Like you don't have to have an Android, but as long as the child has an Android, it can monitor those.
Now, why is that? I'm just curious. Like, why an Android and not an iPhone?
So iOS cares, or Apple cares more about the privacy of its users, even if that user is a 10-year-old. So the problem is the operating system is so locked down to third parties that third parties cannot get into kind of the nitty gritty of the device in order to pull that data and get that information, because it's a privacy concern, because you're relaying that information to a third party. So Apple basically locks that information from any third party applications. So what most third party applications have to do, like Bark, they have to be installed on a computer, and the iPhone will back up to the computer, and then it can only monitor the backup. Like it can't monitor what's actually going on the device. So say I am away from home with my iPhone and I send text messages and I delete all those text messages before I get home and the backup runs on the computer. Bark will never pick up that information just because it's been deleted prior to the backup running, because it can't monitor directly on the device. It can only monitor what has been backed up to the computer.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is to parents whose kids have Snapchat to get them off of that immediately.
Right. I mean, as long as if they're older and they've already proved that like they've, like I said, 16, 17, I would totally allow it. Mm-hmm. My daughter has it. She's 17, almost 18. She hasn't asked for Snapchat. Her friends don't use Snapchat, so it hasn't been a big deal for her. But I think just as they age, you can open up, I've monitored their social media at this age, and then so I can see that they've been using it appropriately, and we can graduate from there, so that like you can eventually graduate to Snapchat when like I start letting go of a lot of like my parental controls. Hopefully by the time they're 18, I'm not monitoring anything. They can do whatever they want. They can have an iPhone. I don't care. I mean, I care obviously, but yeah, so be like just stepping them through that. I think Snapchat would be the very last social media I would allow.
Interesting. Okay. And there's no way to make it safe. That I didn't know that, actually. I thought there were some parental controls of some sort. I know a lot of kids use it for the filters.
Right, right.
What I mean?
Which are
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. There
Hmm.
is actually some parental oversight. I forgot to include this. So you can, if you have a Snapchat account, you can invite your child to be monitored basically through Snapchat itself. And the only things you're going to see is who they are contacting and who their friends are. So you won't be able to see like any content or anything like that, but you can
Hmm.
see who they're messaging regularly and who their, friends are. So if they add friends that you don't allow or that are strangers or things like that, you can have some oversight on that.
Okay. All right. What other top device would you say kids should not be on?
I mean, those are really my main ones. I mean, like I said,
Okay.
there's new ones all the time, and
Yeah.
so it would be really hard to like make a huge list. Discord is probably up there as well, but there is some monitoring you can do for Discord, especially if the child has Android. And so it's not as bad, or I could even log in to my child's Discord account. But Discord is rife with child predators and inappropriate content. So there's a lot of trouble they could get in on Discord. So if you
Mhm.
do allow Discord, I would just like have a lot of oversight onto it.
Yeah. And I know you've mentioned Roblox before. I've heard you talk about Roblox. Now, what are your thoughts on Roblox?
Yeah, so my kids were not allowed on Roblox as they were kids, mainly because most of so Roblox is basically a gaming platform, and so all of it is user generated content. So Joe Schmo over here can create a game and upload it to Roblox for kids to play. So all of those games aren't necessarily appropriate for kids. So it could be a game that has extreme violence, or it could have sexual content or anything like that. And so if the kid comes on and plays that game, they'll be exposed to that inappropriate content. And so there's not really anything you can you can't just allow specific games. There's one setting that you can set in the parental controls that will only allow them access to Roblox games, like any games that have been just created by Roblox, but it's super limited. So most kids, like the games they want to play, don't want to be on that setting because it's just, it doesn't have all the games that they want to play. So,
Hmm.
so I don't like that aspect. And then there's this open chat where, I mean, again, you can set parental controls where they can only chat with people who are friends or they can't chat at all, but they might come across inappropriate content. The chat is supposedly moderated. So they'll say like words that kind of get around the moderation. Predators are really reaching out to kids on Roblox all the time. So those are my two like things that I really don't like about Roblox. They do have parental controls, like I said. You have to set it inside their own account. Like there's no parental app where I can like set that remotely or anything. And then you just block the settings with a PIN code. But so yeah, Roblox isn't my favorite. I think there's better things that they can play.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on YouTube? And I know this is going to get
Yeah.
a lot of parents are listening to this one. A lot of kids are on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love YouTube because that's where my channel is. I have it
I
on
know,
there.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, for kids, there are things you can do to kind of make it a little safer. YouTube Kids is out there, but again, their predators are really smart sometimes and will create videos that look benign but are not benign. So like it might look like a super legit cartoon or whatever, but the audio is terrible. So those kind of things get past the YouTube Kids filters a little bit. When they get reported, they get taken down, but it's just not the complete safe environment that your kids could just go nuts on. Like if they're on YouTube, what I like to say is never YouTube just on an individual device. If you're going to watch YouTube, you have to watch it on like a smart TV, so everybody can see what's happening. So in those situations, I'm definitely okay with them browsing through YouTube because everybody in the house can hear what's going on, and it's not like gonna limit them into this like little tiny screen that's going to hurt their eyes and their ears and everything like that.
Mhm.
So like when I tell my kids, if you're consuming content, consume content like on a bigger screen. If you're going to be playing a game or whatever, or like if you're on Instagram or on social media, sure, fine on your phone. But if you're consuming content, do it on a big screen so everybody can know what's going on.
Oh, that's a good idea, because I'm sure they would be more careful if it's on the big screen too, as far as what they choose to listen to or watch.
Exactly, for sure.
Now, YouTube also has a restricted mode, and I know it's not always caught like the profanity and things like that, but what are your thoughts on restricted mode?
Yeah, restricted mode is great. The other thing I like about restricted mode is it also restricts them access to the comments, which,
Yes.
the comment section is just probably the worst place in the world.
Yes.
So I like that about restricted mode. You can't see any comments on any videos. You can't leave comments on any videos. So I really like that. And then sometimes it gets a little too restrictive. So it'll restrict you from content that like you need for school or things like that. So I'm okay with it being too restrictive in most cases. But sometimes you want to turn that off so that they can access content like they need to access. But for the most part, I think restricted mode works really well. Of course, things will still get through. And so putting it on a big screen is definitely going to help with that for sure.
Yeah. Now, I know there's a lot of other websites that I don't want my kids on, and I used to just block them when they were younger. Like I would just put a extension on the computer, and then I started using like a web filtering. See, there's a ton of them. I know there's
There are.
Spark. Anyway, I'm not doing a plug for them, but
right.
I use that filtering device on the computer. It has its pros and cons because yes, sometimes they'd be in school. Mom, I can't get to my class online, whatever, because this thing take it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like a web filtering device just in general? Like, do you think it's helpful?
For sure. I'm a strong believer in multiple layers of parental controls, basically. And so where a web filter is most beneficial is at the Wi-Fi router itself. So if you have like really any router, you can sign up for an open DNS account. So it's just opendns.com, and it's free. So totally free content filtering. All you need to do is log into your router. And so it might get a little complicated for people who don't know how to do that, but there's instructions for basically like every type of router on that website. And you just change one setting to point to these open DNS servers. And so what it does is basically gives the computer bad directions. So say I'm like going to pornhub.com or whatever. OpenDNS will say, oh, Pornhub lives over here, which it doesn't. It's just a big splash screen that says this content is blocked. And then, so it's giving it bad directions to this like blocked page. And so it's not going to the actual website. So that's how DNS filtering kind of works. It just basically gives the computer bad directions. And so OpenDNS is great. Like I said, it's free. You can just put it on the router that you already have. And it's a great kind of level to that filtering. The next level would be like a device that you would maybe put in your network. One of the popular ones back in the day that I had never got on board with was called Circle. People thought of it called Circle by Disney. It really wasn't by Disney, but like Disney has basically a financial arm where it like helps give financing to companies. And so it gave financing to this. So the Disney brand really wasn't involved in the device itself, but it was able to kind of leverage that Disney name to get really popular. But it destroyed my network speeds. So I hated it from the beginning. And so I do not recommend the Circle device. But what I do recommend is it's basically a Wi-Fi router. So no matter what internet services provider you have, you can buy your own Wi-Fi router. And so this one has parental controls built in. So it also has its own content filter. And then I can also add OpenDNS to that content filter. So I'm kind of double protected there. And so any device on my network will go through the router, get some content filtering there. If it fails, if there's something that it lets through on accident, then OpenDNS is kind of there to, pick up the slack and go through that way. So Griffin is the Wi-Fi router that I recommend. It's GRYPHON.
Now that all sounds very complicated to
install.
I know. Yeah. You're an IT manager.
Right. So the Griffin is actually pretty easy to install. It's got an app Like, so there's no web URL to go through. You basically just need to plug it into the modem that you have. So your internet provider gives you a modem, or you rent a modem, or you buy your own modem. So there's usually a device in your house that's from your internet provider. And all you
Mhm.
need to do is plug this in to that modem, and
Okay.
then the app will walk you through the rest of it.
Okay. So that's basically a level of protection where you're buying your own router or modem. Which one are they buying?
Router, yeah.
The
So the
router.
modem
Okay.
is still provided by the internet services
Right.
provider. So
Right.
you would need to keep that, because that's what's actually bringing the internet into your house. So
Okay. Yes.
yeah.
So what would be another level of protection? Is it one of these systems that
So,
you buy online?
so the next level I would be is just an on-device protection. And
Yeah.
most devices have their own built-in protection. So like for Windows computers, you can use something called Microsoft Family Safety. And that will help you set time limits on like the laptop. It'll help you block access to different applications, and you can block access to different websites and do content filtering through the device itself. So I always say, like, on devices, like kind of your first level of protection, because the Wi-Fi router can't necessarily see what's going on directly on the device. It can only see the internet traffic. And
Mm-hmm.
so something that's on the device can help like shut it down like at night, which I definitely recommend, making sure all devices are shut down at night, including the internet. And so with Microsoft Family Safety, with Apple, you can use iOS screen time. So it's built into the iOS system, and you basically add your child's Apple ID to your account, and then you can control their device through that. And that you can also set up content filterings through the screen time settings. And then Android devices has something called Google Family Link, similar. You can set restricted mode on YouTube because it's integrated in the Google technology. And you can do content filtering with Chrome and things like that. So every device really has its own parental controls that you can set, like including like a Nintendo Switch has parental controls that you can set. So on device is really that next layer that you really want to get control of as well.
Okay. And now it's coming back to me. When they were younger, I used something called Net Nanny.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
heard of
yeah,
that?
yep.
Yeah. So I installed that on all the devices. However, the parental controls that I had on their iOS devices interfered with Net Nanny.
Sure.
So I often had to be on the phone with tech support, like, oh, this is not working. You know.
Yeah. So, and that's partly because of iOS's hatred of third-party
Oh,
applications.
okay.
So they're like, with iOS, you're very limited in what will actually work well with the device. And so using the iOS screen time, that built-in parental controls, is going to be your best bet for an Apple device.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like you're a fan of Apple
Oh,
devices
yeah.
for kids. And that's
No,
all we
I'm
use in our
not.
household.
Yeah.
We
And
don't have
I mean,
any Androids.
and that's standard, and I'm trying to get the word out that like iOS devices aren't that great for kids.
Yeah.
And it's fine for parents and adults and things like that. It's so difficult to monitor. The parental controls are really easy to get around and hard to lock down sufficiently. So I really like, especially for a first phone, I would recommend not an iOS device, but as they get older, as they've proven themselves on like previous devices, 16, 17, go ahead, they can finally get their iOS device. But yeah, for kids, I definitely do not recommend.
Now, how did you get your teenagers to buy into this?
They always had Androids. They had no choice.
Do they have flip phones?
Yeah, no. No, we've got Samsung phones here.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, my kids have had phones. Like my almost 18-year-old, she's had a phone since she was about 8, just because of what I do. I mean, I've been doing this since 2009. And so, I've been always getting the free phones and things like that. So she had one when she was about 8, and it was a kind of kid-safe smartphone that I was trying out. It's, since been defunct. But So they've always had access to a lot of technology. And so they've never really even questioned the fact that they don't have an iOS device. And even my son, who's 14, he's the one I would think like would maybe want an iOS device, but he's really into like coding and technology. And like he's just like, yeah, no, I'm happy with my Android device. And I was like, good for you, bud.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Is there any other security measures that parents can take as far as internet safety?
So many. But, like,
What about basic things? Any other
I'm,
basic things you can think of?
I'm like, those are my main ones, just making
Okay.
sure that you have protections on these different layers,
Mhm.
the on device, on the Wi-Fi, even beyond that. And especially for phones. So most phone carriers will have their own kind of parental control system. So with Verizon, we are Verizon customers. There's Verizon Smart Family. So again, I can lock down their phones at night. So, say I shut down the internet on my Wi-Fi at night, well, they can just hop off the Wi-Fi and have, access to the internet. So that's why I also shut it down on Verizon Smart Family so that, they can't kind of circumvent that through that way. So, making sure there's protection on the Wi-Fi, there's protection when they're away from home, away from the Wi-Fi, and then protection on the device itself.
Okay. Do you have like a one sheet that we
Yeah.
can share with the listeners as far as like these basic levels of protection?
I believe I do. I haven't pulled it out in a while, but I remember creating something like that. So I'll dig it out and I'll try and send it over to you.
Okay. So what I mentioned to you, and I'm sorry if you repeated this already,
Oh,
I'm
you're
not
fine.
a tech person at all. So the net nanny, the bark, the custodial, what is that called? What are those things called? I know that's a level of protection.
Yeah, so those are parental control apps. Those basically go on device. So it would be a same level
Oh,
as like any of the on device protections,
oh, that's
which
the on
I
device.
do use multiple, like, so I use Bark as well as Google Family Link for my kids, because I use Google Family Link to make sure they're requesting app approvals. So they can't download any apps without my knowledge, and shutting down the device itself. So I use Google Family Link for that, but I use Bark to monitor the content of like what they're saying on social media, what they're saying in their text messages and Discord and things like that. So
Right.
I use both of those, but those would be on the on device layer. So
Okay.
our Pact is actually a really good one for iOS. But it's going to be similar. You're going to have a computer to install it on, and it's going to, have hoops to jump through for those iOS devices. But our Pact is one you didn't mention that I really
Oh,
like as well.
okay. Maybe we'll mention this. I'll mention that in the show notes. Is that an on-device one as well?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay. Now, what are some websites out there or apps that you think are doing it well and you feel comfortable when your kids are on these platforms?
Yeah, so one of my suggestions is probably going to shock most of your people. But the first suggestion I have is Be Real. I love Be Real. I think it's like the most benign social media out there. It's doesn't have any direct messages. It doesn't have a really engaging feed. So they're not going to be spending a ton of time on it. So Be Real will just send a notification to everybody. You post your Be Real at that time. And then you see you can't see anybody else's unless you post your own. But like, it's really just boring daily life. Like, so I'm interested in like what my kids are doing and my friends are doing, but I'm not going to go into that Discover feed because I'm like, I don't care what these people are doing. And so it's a really benign social media. And so I really like that as a like starter social
Okay.
media. And then for the filters you said that are really fun, for younger kids, like younger than 13, Facebook Messenger Kids, it has those kind of filters.
Mhm.
And it's really fun, but it's got a lot of parental oversight. Like they can't add friends unless like the parents approve them. There's a lot of, eh, like hoops they would need to jump through. You can also like shut it down for like different times a day and things. So it's got the fun filters, but it has a lot of parental oversight. So I like Facebook Messenger Kids for younger than 13.
Okay.
But then here's the shocking one. TikTok actually has really good parental controls built in. So
Oh,
it's actually my favorite of all the like really popular social media. It has the best built-in parental controls. And so I can set it up so my son's account is under my own TikTok account, and I can shut it down so that they can't message anybody, that they can't like that only friends can see their TikToks, or even just only him can see his TikToks. And I can make it so the feed is a little filtered. Again, nothing's going to be perfect on the filtering, but his feed will be a little more filtered. He can't log out of that TikTok account without me allowing him to log out of that TikTok account. So he can't just like log out of the protected account and like log into a different account. So it shuts them out from that as well. So I really like TikTok's built-in parental controls. I think they're doing it better than all the other ones.
Wow. Even better than Instagram.
Oh, way better than Instagram's. Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you let your kids on Instagram? Like, what do you think about Instagram?
Yeah. So my daughter, like I said, she is on Instagram, and she's had Instagram for a while. I would at the beginning, like when they're first starting out with Instagram, either just use their account, have them use their account on your phone, while they're learning how to do it and how to like be appropriate and training the algorithm. So like if you sit down with them and like have them, oh, you like this video? Okay, watch this video. Okay, now we can keep scrolling. So it kind of trains the algorithm to show them content that is appropriate and that they would enjoy. And so kind of sitting down with them and going through that process, and then they can maybe log into their Instagram account on their phone while you still have it on your phone. So you see the direct messages that they're getting, and things like that, and then eventually you can log out of their account on your phone and they can just go with it. But there's some steps you can take to like help them navigate Instagram, but there's a little more oversight at the beginning.
Okay. Now, in all of these parental controls, what is the age range that parents should keep these on their devices? Is it all the way up until they're 18?
Yeah.
I mean, when should they take the parental controls off?
Yeah, like I said, my 17-year-old, she'll be 18 in September. She basically does not have any parental controls on her device anymore. And like, I think I did that when around like 17 and a half or something, like, okay, you're ready, and it's really because we've kind of gone through this process together. She was asking me the other day, she's like, hey, so I want to talk to you. I want to get Tumblr. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't like, I'm not controlling what you install anymore. Like, so here's the like things that like can be a gotcha in Tumblr. Like you can see inappropriate content or like things like that. I'm like, so go ahead and install it. That's completely up to you. Just here are the pitfalls so that you can avoid them. And so like, cause we're at that point where she trusts me enough to know that I'm just trying to keep her safe, and I can trust her because I've been monitoring her for, so long prior to that. The goal is just by the time they're 18, they're completely hands off.
Mm-hmm. And as we wind down the conversation, is there anything else that you think parents need to know regarding this subject?
All the things.
I know the 3 hours worth of information. I know.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to have you back on.
Yeah. My favorite thing is to just shut down the internet at night. Like, if everybody's asleep, nobody needs to be online. So however you can do that, a lot of times you can do that through your router, or you can do that through your internet services provider or through your mobile provider. But just shutting down the internet at night when everyone's asleep, I think is one of the most beneficial things that you can do for your kids and technology.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This is so valuable. Again, I would love to have you on because there's so much more that I want to talk to you about. But where can people find you, your platform, if they want to know more about you and the services that you provide?
Yeah, sure. I'm Family Tech on all social media platforms. So, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just look for Family Tech. I'm there. My YouTube channel is also just Family Tech. So just search for Family Tech and it's me.
Hey, moms, thanks for listening today. If you enjoy this show, I would love to hear from you by way of an encouraging review. This podcast is meant to be a blessing to mothers, so I appreciate any support for this platform. Until next time.